Hello there! I'm Scotty, you're not, and we are on day. That's not on the right page. It's day 7. I could have just did the other one, the Cousin Skeeter one. We are talking about Kenan and Kel's TV movie, Two Heads Are Better Than None, which as I mentioned, bought off Xbox. It's in 3 different parts, and so there's that. But there's something interesting. The version I watched is probably the worst version you can ever watch. Because they decided that splitting them in 3 episodes isn't enough. They had to add a laugh track. I'm trying not to swear right now, but I wouldn't. A laugh track to the move to them, to each of them. The laugh track. And the laugh track makes it worse. Like there's sometimes the laugh track works, like in part 3, towards the end where they're in Arthur's study and they accidentally shoot the little crossbow thing and it hits the door, and Kel takes the arrow and he's like turns back, shuts it, and they laugh and the doors are closed. That works, but there's just this it it feels off because they're not supposed. It's not supposed to be there. The laugh track is not supposed to be there. And what's worse is that this begins with something I didn't know existed, but upon looking it up, apparently this was in the initial uh, airing, and they took it out. They have an opening. Remember, I said with the TV show, each episode was introduced by Kenan and Kel from a live to the audience, and then they'd do a little gag and transition into the episode. And I said that in the movie they didn't do that. Well, apparently they did, because in the initial airing of the movie, there is this intro, which is on this version, where Kenan and Kel come out to no audience. There's no one there, and Kel's like, "Where's everybody?" And Kenan's like, "Well, this is a movie, and so we don't need an audience. So they're gonna watch it from home. Well, how are they gonna watch it from home? On their TVs, you know?" And so yeah, they explained that there is no audience, and then there's a laugh track. That makes no sense. They just explained that there's no audience watching, and yet they put in a laugh track. What sense does that make? What, huh? It makes no sense to me. And they took some stuff out. Like, the ones I noticed, in the beginning here, when Kenan asked Roger, Rockmore, his dad, for Kenan to go, for Kel to go with, he's like, please, he's like, no, 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 and then he does it again, though, in the original version, he goes, please, no, 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 no. But here, he asks him once, he says, no, 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 and it cuts to them in the thing, and then there's a couple other spots, like, maybe it's in this version, I don't know, but I don't recall seeing them finding the Dennis Rodman head made of meat, and there's some other stuff taken out, like, just little pieces of dialogue, like when they find the headless knight statue in the museum thing, uh, the guy pops up and goes, "Hi ho," and they say, "Did you tell him there's no such town as Rockville?" "Oh, that there is such a town." And in the original version, he goes, "But it's far, far away from here, thank God." But they cut that out, and it's like, what? Okay, but it's far, far away from here. But the car breaks down, and there's just little things, and they, to their credit, are able to edit the episodes of word parts. Like episode 1 ends where it looks like Kenan's going to get attacked by the headless knight, but then, of course, it's just Kel with a flesh water. And then the second part ends with Nancy, which I'll explain later, getting taken by the butler, played by what's his name? Is it a Hills Have Eyes? Michael Berryman, by Michael Berryman, and like, to their credit, that's good places to end those. But to do that, I think you had to take some dialogue. I don't know if there's any dialogue taken from the third one. I couldn't really remember anything. So third part, I should say. But yeah, so the story here is that Kenan and the Rockmore family are going on a family vacation, and Kel shows up. Kenan's dad says, "No, you can't come," but they hide him in the back of the car anyway. But you can't see him either way. Like they had him set up so he's hidden, but like where is he? Because in the car they have stuff in the way, in the thing, and in the back there's stuff in the way. How much luggage did they have? There's luggage in the top too, but it's just like I don't know. And Kenan's reasoning is, well, once we get far enough away, about 120 miles or so, there's no way he'll turn back. And yeah, and so Mikkel starts making noises, psst, psst, and yeah. Then Kenan opens his mouth and said, well, maybe it was a flat tire. We should check it in about 20 some odd miles. And like, no, we got to check it now, but there's nothing. And so he's like, oh, but I'm kind of hungry. I want a sandwich. And you just leave? I don't know. And Kel is there with a sandwich. And he sticks his hand out, see it, and it doesn't click for Roger at first. And he's like, and he goes back, and so it's like, we got to turn back, and Ken is like, Father, it's too far to turn back. Now we'll just leave him on the side of the road then. And Ken's mom's like, Roger, we can't just leave him here, so they have to take him with. So yeah. And so they're on the road, and they decide they're going to camp for the night. And this is where the whole thing starts. They're camping, and I love the joke. It's kind of ruined by the laugh track, but he comes up, he goes, hey, Kel, what you cooking? Sticks. You want one? He's just roasting a stick. Roasting a stick, which I did call back to in my review of the crossover with them and Cousin Skeeter, because he's got a whole bag of marshmallows that he's roasting in that one, and they're not cooking, which is weird. And I do love that they have the gag later, after this scene, when they're in the car, and he's eating a stick. So, continuity, stick with that. Other continuity problems, like when he's singing "A Million Bottles of Orange Soda" on the wall at the beginning of this, his hat changes, which could be different camera cuts that they do, but, there's other stuff, but, which I'll get to later. So, while they're camping, they meet the couple, the older couple known as the Shelleys, as Kenan calls them, the Wilson couple. Sheldon Wilson and his wife, Shelley Wilson, and they call each other Shelley. And they really want some ketchup. So they ask for some ketchup. And it's weird because they ask for ketchup later when they're in the Headless Knight's house. And it's like, if they love ketchup so much, why don't they bring it themselves? It's like, thank you again for the ketchup. Just ketchup. And yeah, Roger sings a song, which is very badly dubbed because his lips don't really match. It does, but it doesn't. There's some sketchy things in this. 2000 CGI does not hold up, and we'll find out later in the film. But yeah, so Kenan's dad starts to tell a ghost story. I love the gag, and I don't know if it's in this version because I wasn't really paying attention, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Cal goes, "Oh, I got one. When the bread got out of the toaster, no one knew what to put on it. Butter, margarine, jelly, margarine, cinnamon, sugar. I suggested butter. Crumbs are everywhere. Man, he said tell ghost stories, not toast stories. Oh, I don't know any ghost stories." And then so Kenan's dad starts telling a story called The Bloody Cemetery. And Kenan's like, you know what? That fire's going down. I'm going to go into the woods. He's scared of this scary story, so he's just going to go walk off into the dark woods to collect firewood. Like, how is that any less scary? You're in a room fire with your family. You're going to walk off. This is so he can bump into the Headless Knight, which introduces our plot. And I thought this was weird back then. It is weird now that this Black Knight thing is just introduced to us right now. We start off thinking, okay, it's going to be some kind of road trip, and Cal's going to mess it up. And then he introduces this Black Knight element. And it's like, okay, this kind of goes a little bit off the rails, but fine, sure. And then, the next day, they're driving, And they go to the Believe It or Not Museum or whatever it's called. I'm not to believe my eyes. I'm not to believe my eyes. And there's another cut here because originally it takes longer to convince Roger to go. But here there's a cut with Kel's line dubbed over where he goes, I want to believe my eyes. I want not to believe my eyes. And they're just there already. And they go in here, and again, I mentioned there's the world's largest lemon. Dennis Rodman's head made out of meat, which it would spoil after a while. And the world's largest ball of string, which we'll get to. And Chimperachi, the monkey who can play the piano. Yeah, and the Shelleys are there too, and they take them again for the catch-up, because, you know. And they get there, and Kenan and Kel run to the Shelleys, and they do the Chimperachi, and Kel says, hey, monkey, do you know Superstition by Stevie Wonder? And he's like, Kel, monkey ain't got no superstition. And the monkey plays Superstition, and I was kind of intrigued, because I thought they were going to dub it out, or cut it, because, copyright, but no, it's still in the episode, but all the other minor cuts that'll make sense, but yeah. And then they find the world's largest ball of string after that. And Kel just has to hug it. Because, and it rolls away. And we see the Shelleys are in the way of it. And Missy Shelley jumps out of the way, which leads to something later. And it rolls off. And here, we see it rolling down the road. And there's no string attached to it. But then Kenan picks up a string that we see is supposed to be attached to it. And it cuts to another shot of it rolling, and there's no string coming out. So, Gave him continuity in two different scenes there, two different cuts. But because of this, Kenan and Kel are like, let's get out of here. Let's go, man. Let's go. And yeah, so then they find the Headless Knight exhibit, and that they say there's a Headless Knight, and it's been spotted as close as it's been spotted in a place called Rockville, which they say doesn't exist, but the guy's like, it does exist. They do exist. It's an M&M commercial, but yeah, and so there's that. And so yeah, they go to stay at a hotel this time. And Kenan and Kel have their own room. There's another cut here. But they keep in one line that now doesn't make sense, really, with the context, because Kel comes out of the bathroom and says, thank you for letting me use your, for lending me a nightgown. And he's also wearing his underwear. And they're using a toothbrush. They cut all that out, and he's just cuts to him opening his suitcase, and inside of it is a bottle of orange soda, no surprise, and an umbrella. And Kenan says the line, Matt, you thought to pack an umbrella, but you didn't pack any drawers? And I'm sitting going, but that line doesn't make any sense anymore, because you haven't stated the fact that he's wearing Kenan's drawers. So, yeah, I don't know. I used to call my underwear that. I used to watch Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, so I would call it drawers. I didn't get me a new pair of drawers, but yeah. And so they go to bed, and Kenan has a nightmare about the Headless Knight being there, and he wakes up, and the door is open. I'll explain why in a minute. It's an eye roller. It's supposed to be a funny joke, but I never thought it was funny. It's just, well, it's a little funny if you think about it. And you see, looks like the Headless Knight's axe, and that's when the episode ends with Kenan going, ah. But it's actually Kel with a fly swatter, and he's like, man, shut the door. What's the door doing open? Well, I opened the door because it got hot in here. I didn't open the windows because who knows, a stranger could come through the windows. That's the Kel logic for you. That's Kel logic. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. So, and there's a running joke with it. Don't say night. Nighty, night, night. Don't say night. And he puts a quarter in the massage machine, which is broken because by the time they wake up the next morning, it's still going. And then we get, there's this other stuff they could have cut out. Like this whole thing I never liked with this gas station attendant. There's a whole thing where, well, I guess you can't really because of the set up something. They go out there. Roger's gonna fill the car with gas. The set is at $1.59 a gallon, which I don't drive, but you can use that nowadays. You know what I mean? Kale squirts gasoline all over him. She goes, I'm gonna check under the hood, which is a nod to something that happens later, but I've never liked the fact that Roger never connects it. When they figure out that something's missing from later that causes the car to stop working, which, okay, I'm getting too far. There's a whole gag with the guy the gas station attendant guy who says his name is something else, but his name's really Steve, and he keeps putting his hand on Kenan. He's got gas or dirt or something all over his hand or something, and it messed up his shirt. And I do like when Kenan goes, I gotta go chain my shirt. Because I'll say it like that sometimes. I'm gonna go chain my shirt. I should have chained my shirt before this because I'm wearing the same shirt for the last few reviews. I promise you, next review I'll be wearing a different shirt. Okay? But, yeah. So they go off, and again, they find out later that there's wires missing from the car. And if that was the case, it wouldn't start. It wouldn't start. There's no way it would start. But, movie. So, car stops working. And so they decide to send Kenan and Kel to the next town. They find a sign. And wouldn't you know it, it's Rockville. So, yeah, Kenan's all flustered right away. And so they start walking. They do the gag that you've seen before where Kel's like, I can't walk anymore. I can't walk anymore. I need water. He's not going, water, water, water. I need water. He's like, and Kenan just turns around. Mom, can one of you guys bring Kel some water? And then they're walking down the road later, and he's like, man, you have any more water? And it starts to rain. I didn't mean that much water until you can see umbrella. Well, I guess we've got an umbrella. So they walk to Rockville. I do like the joke where they get there, and he's like, Kenan's like, welcome to beautiful Rockville, man. It's like a derelict town, it's nothing. And Kel's like, yeah, we just asked one of these people to help us. Kenan goes, man, what people? It's abandoned. It's a ghost town. And then they say, Kel's like, what's that? It's a scary mansion with lights on. So that's where they're going to go. And they get there. And I do like this gag too, where it's a big scary mansion and he goes to ring the bell and it does the cucaracha with the sounds like ice cream music. And then the butler answers the door. It's Michael Berryman, cameo. Well, cameo to a bit of a role in this episode at least. 2 episodes. This is still part 2, by the way. I wouldn't know that if they didn't put it in separate parts. And at this point, I'm just trying to ignore the laugh track because it's bothering me. It almost ruins the movie, but I'm trying to say, I know this is really good. And the laugh track is making it worse. But I'm not going to judge on that when I give it's a TV film, but I'm going to give my rating later. I'm going to give a rating. But, yeah, so they get in there, and they keep the whole thing about, oh, that's ugly dude, ugly picture, which that's another thing they could have cut for time, I think. But they're introduced to the Shelleys, who have somehow made it there, and Kenan even kind of passively aggressively goes, they're like, where's your parents? Oh, back with the car, where you waved at us. They're like, oh, and Mrs. Shelley has a cast on her leg because she injured herself diving on the world's largest ball of string, which caused them to go. But yeah, and we're also introduced to Harold and Nancy, who are an African American couple, and Harold's grandfather Leo, played by Milton Berle. I'll say it again. African American Harold's grandfather, played by Milton Berle, who's an old white guy. Does anyone else see the problem here? I never thought of it growing up. Maybe I did once. But to think about it, no, I did think of it growing up. Like, he's white, and maybe Harold's father was adopted? Maybe, but it's never specified. And they all got stuck there in the weather and stuff. So, and we meet Arthur, who is the proprietor of this house, the owner of this house, and he's the headless knight. He's played by Tom Knickerbocker, who you may know from Square One TV. I think he was in that. Used to watch that a lot growing up. Good shit. MathNet. Mm-hmm. Anyway, MathNet was cool. But anyway, ooh, excuse me, indigestion. So anyway, they go to have dinner, and Kenan at this point is pretty much sure that Arthur is the headless knight. So they go in there and they say Bethel is going to bring out the food, but don't stare at her because she's got no eyelids. Although she clearly has eyelids, it's just the actress going like this, make it appear as if she doesn't, but she clearly has eyelids. I don't know. And yeah, Kel's the one that goes, "Oh, you don't have the eyelids." No, he didn't say eyelids. He said violets. Violets. You know, spruce the room up, violets. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And Arthur keeps going, "Nancy, your hands are kind of dirty. Why don't you go wash your hands?" And he's like, "Okay." And Harold's like, "I'll go." "No, your hands look fine." And so Nancy goes to wash her hands, and she's taken by the butler guy. Chives is his name, I guess. And taken. Is that a Chives? Is that a nod to when? Thank you, Java. No, that's later done in. That's Drake and Josh. That's later. So was that a nod to Kenan and Kel? I don't know. There's an episode of Drake and Josh where Drake makes Josh be his driver because Drake got his driver's license taken away and Josh didn't. So Josh is being called Chives. That's what it is. But yeah, so Nancy is taken, and this is where the episode ends. I don't remember any actual episode. I thought it was just a cut to her screaming, but maybe this was in there. I don't remember it. Who knows? But yeah, so that's where episode 2 ends, and then part 3 begins. So they have this. And look, I get it. They split into 2 parts, but they do a previously on, and it's funny because I did a voiceover for the third part. I go previously on, and it cuts to. I said previously on Kenan and Kel, and it cuts to Kenan screaming, "Ah!" I'm like, that's a funny edit, just how that worked. Previously on Kenan and Kel, "Ah!" But yeah, so we pick up after that. There's still the dinner, and they bring the food, which Kenan is very aware could be human meat, because I forgot to mention that the Headless Knight, he chops off people's heads and uses them as his own, which is confusing. And then we'll get to that. I'll try to go through that later. And then he eats the bodies. And so Kenan, knowing full well this is the Headless Knight, is afraid to eat anything. Although Kel couldn't care less. But he knows there's something with this. He's like, what kind of meat? Is it cow, pig meat, or human? He's like, "No, I'm gonna show you. It's meat." Then he takes a drink, and the man's neck is leaking because it's. So he goes to the back, and we get the CGI with this. It looks terrible. It's clearly like green screened, but it looks terrible. 2000 technology was not very good. No. I didn't know if it looked good back then. But Bethel takes the head off, she's blowing on it, and he's like, "I'm never using his head again." Question. Because later he does the thing where he's telling everybody, over here, you idiot. And I'm just like, wait. We're supposed to believe this head was someone else's head that he took off at some point. So, how did he achieve sentience to this head? Is Arthur his original head, or what? Because it doesn't really make much sense. But everybody is taken to their rooms after Arthur comes back, and they're talking about the headless knight. Again, there's something you cut here too, where they're talking about the headless knight. He's the one. Is he the one with the big head? No, it's a headless knight. What the? What? Yeah, everybody's taken to their rooms except for Harold, as he is going to go with Arthur to find Leo and Nancy. So he's dead, and eventually, because they hear Nancy screaming. I don't think they hear Leo screaming. They hear Nancy scream. And then, Kenan and Kel are sharing a room again, and Kel's like, Kenan's like, we need to go find out if he's the headless knight. We gotta go find out what happened with the scream. And like, what scream? Like the scream it did a man. And like, aren't you weird about that scream? And then there's Harold's scream, and he's like, how'd you know what's gonna happen? I was talking about the scream it did it, man. And so they're gonna leave, and the door's locked. I do like this, where he's like, it's locked. The door? No, the sandwich. Come on. Of course the door is locked. So Kel, getting claustrophobic, I guess, just bashes through it, his head through, and they're able to get out. And then we get something. Kel, you see the butler Chives walking behind him, and Kel's like, oh no, I think I dropped my shoes. You can't drop your shoes if you're wearing them on your feet. But he says, no, I had them on the whole time. And yeah, this is what, it's very weird, because like, he goes to get him and misses, but Kenan somehow doesn't notice the big giant man standing next to him when he does that. And then Kel's walking in front of him, and he's going to get Kel, and he just opens the door. And you see sometimes you open a door and they walk into it and they shut it. But no, he goes and shuts it, and you're like, why'd you open the door then? Why'd you open the cupboard door then if it's just to do that? Also, it's a see-through glass one, it would have broken. Anyway, they get downstairs, they start looking around, and Arthur finds them in his study because Cal just can't stop making noise. They get down there, we gotta be quiet. Make every noise, they drop a globe and the aforementioned crossbow goes off, and the thing that happens. And then they find a secret room that just so happened by accident knocked the thing. It's one of those twisty torch things. And they find a secret room. And Arthur finds them, and he's like, what are you doing down here? He's like, we're never here. You're dreaming. Wake up, Arthur, wake up. And he's not buying it. He walks toward them, and they run downstairs. Well, they knock his head off, because Kenan, of course, knows he's the headless knight. And Kel's like, I told you. He goes, no, you didn't. I told you. And they run down to the secret room, where they find the Shelleys. Mr. Shelley is in the stocks, and other Shelley is in what looks like to be an electric chair of some sort. And then you have Harold, Nancy, and Leo's heads, and they do the gag where Kel goes up, hey, Harold, Nancy, Leo, how you guys doing? I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to answer it me. He's like, Matt, those are just heads. Sorry, it's funny. I laugh. Those are just heads. And then Arthur comes down, and and they get away from him. I think they knock his head off again. And they get away from him, and they go up, and Chives and Bethel are there. You won't be leaving through this door. Oh, Kel. Oh, is that another door we can go through? You won't be leaving through any door. Oh. Stand back, boys. The Shelleys come in, and they're whipping their ass. And like Mrs. Shelley takes off her cast and starts beating Bethel with it. It's fantastic. It's all sped up, but it's fun. Come on, boys, let's go. And they go to leave, and the gate's locked, and we do it again. It's locked. The door? No. The sandwich? Matt, would you come on the gate? And so he comes out again, throws the axe, misses, and the head gets knocked off again. Flies off, lands on the little hood ornament on the car there as the Shelleys start to drive away. And with Kenan and Kel, of course. And because like, oh, I can't find my keys. I'm like, okay, you should have taken that out. But there's some stuff you could have taken out, and some stuff you took out that you could have cat. Yeah. His head's gone. His head's on there, and they stop. Head flies off, and they drive away. And meanwhile, during all this, the Rockmores are still stuck. Roger goes out to try to save the luggage, and he gets struck by lightning twice, which they say can't happen. And then when they try to start the car, he gets like liquid in his face. And then Kyra's able to fix it by putting her bobby pin in between the wires are to connect it, which I don't think would ever work. And like I said, if the wires weren't connected, they wouldn't be able to drive to begin with. But they were stuck at a gas station. But yeah, and so they get it fixed, and they drive up just as the others are driving the other way. And they're like, oh my God, glad you found us. They try to tell him about the headless night, and they don't believe him. So Roger's like, all right, let's go. Before this, though, the Shelleys are like, there you get for the ketchup, and they drive off. And Kenan and Kel both notice that the headless night's body is on the back of their vehicle, so they're probably close to dead whenever they stop. Or it'd be really weird. They're driving. How many people are going to see that? The Rockmores don't see it, which is weird. But Roger, trying to prove that what they're saying is not true, goes back to the Headless Knight's house in Rockville. And as he's looking around, he sees the hat, and he sees the head. He hears someone go, hey, you, Wally. Turns around, and it's Arthur's severed head, which again, yeah, the effects aren't that good either, but again, where's the sense with this? Well, is this the original head? How does it work? Do you wear someone else's head and it then takes the sentience, and then it's sentient until you switch the head? I don't know. It's very weird. I mean, the face swapping thing in Return to Oz made more sense than this, but it was still her. So a different head. Kind of weird. Anyway, we're almost done here. Don't worry. So Roger seeing this freaks out and doesn't say a word, and they just drive off. And that's the end. That's the end of the episode. And it's weird because this starts off with an intro that they added. They took it off later, but they didn't film like an outro thing where they come back out. And, no, this is an intro. Which, again, doesn't make sense because they added a laugh track. And by this point, I was fully ignoring the laugh track, or maybe it integrated better in the last episode. I don't know. But I'm not going to let the laugh track get away from it. Kenan and Kel, Two Heads Are Better Than None, is going to the moon. Kenan and Kel is probably my favorite Nickelodeon show from the 90s. So between that and all that, they flip-flop. But probably Kenan and Kel. So I love this, man. It's classic Kenan and Kel. Yeah. So, let's see. I need to find my Nickelodeon list. Just take it out of here. There's an empty page right here. I could have paused it. I'm already in the process of doing this, so. Hey, yo. Here we go. Alright. So that was 7. Oh, next we are looking at another forgotten Nickelodeon TV film. It's sort of an urban legend type thing, but it's real. It's sort of something that aired once, never again, because it was too scary or too controversial or something for TV. We shall find out when I review Cry Baby Lane. Yes. Till then, what are your thoughts on Kenan and Kel, Two Heads Are Better Than None? Leave comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Scotty. I'll see you in the next one.